Turns out the bad blood between Porsha Williams and K. Michelle never fully faded. Just when the public assumed their high-profile apology had permanently buried the hatchet, industry insiders now claim the hostility was secretly intensifying behind closed doors again. Now the explosive new details emerging from this feud are forcing everyone to question what really went down in all this entire situation. This is exactly where the narrative takes a far more twisted turn. According to emerging reports, Porsha Williams originally crafted the impression that her issues with K. Michelle were completely in the past. Apologies were exchanged, direct conversations happened, and to the public eye, the conflict looked fully resolved. However, deep sources insist that the peace was only surface level. Almost right after that public truce, hidden tensions started resurfacing through coded remarks, quiet pushback, and an obvious shift in their mutual behavior. At this point, it was impossible to deny that things had escalated far beyond a simple misunderstanding. Well-placed sources suggest what the public believed was final closure was only the opening act of a much deeper conflict. Behind closed doors, secret plans were already being discussed, doubts were being raised, and silent battle lines were forming. Once a feud spills from private whispers into the public eye, there is rarely any turning back. What started as a simple truce is now rapidly turning into a full-blown crisis behind everything unfolding. What's really keeping the internet hooked, however, is the shocking depth of how far back this animosity actually goes. Reliable sources suggest that this explosive fallout did not appear out of thin air. Long-standing hidden resentments were already at play, moments where their stories contradicted each other, and small interactions that once seemed trivial now feel highly calculated in hindsight. Furthermore, insiders claim the peace offering completely missed its mark. While Porsha Williams seemingly extended her olive branch with clear intentions, those on the receiving end were fully unwilling to accept it. No clear resolution. That critical turning point, according to reports, highlights a much deeper systematic problem because insiders say biases were already forming backstage, quietly emerging. Key players were actively picking sides, strategic coalitions were quietly forming, and a central storyline was rapidly cementing. Simultaneously, K. Michelle was reportedly dealing with her own intense frustration, not only about the statements themselves, but the delivery style and how the optics would translate on camera behind closed doors again. This is exactly where the drama becomes more complex, because the feud goes beyond a single remark or basic friction entirely now. It fully turns into a battle over motives. It becomes a full war of optics. More critically, it completely destroys absolute trust. Sources suggest that after this shift, every exchange carried extremely heavy psychological weight behind it. Every offhand joke, physical reaction, and casual conversation was suddenly cross-examined under an entirely different microscopic lens again now. Once that psychological shift occurs, even harmless gestures feel weaponized instantly now. Entirely neutral scenarios are suddenly interpreted as direct personal attacks. This insidious pattern shows exactly how high-profile feuds spiral completely out of control. It rarely requires one massive explosion, but rather a slow burn of microscopic friction that builds until an apparently settled issue erupts again all over time eventually. By the time the parties realize the true damage, the public narrative has already completely outpaced them. Then the entire facade began to collapse as the situation took a deeply sinister turn. Prior to this moment, the friction could easily be dismissed as standard ego clashes, bad editing, or typical reality television theatrics running corsets. However, close sources reveal that the narrative completely shifted because this marks the exact threshold where serious accusations emerged. Allegedly, K. Michelle began dropping highly calculated breadcrumbs regarding a much more severe situation unfolding in the background. She didn't state it outright or deliver it transparently, but it was just enough for sharp observers to begin linking the pieces together. Insiders firmly maintain that these cryptic warnings were entirely premeditated, designed to pivot the entire conversation away from a standard rivalry and drag it into deeply sensitive personal territory. That explosive turning point, according to investigative insiders, blew the doors open to a whole new level of controversy, dragging long-buried rumors back into harsh media spotlight. Ancient scandals that were once carefully buried or dismissed suddenly got weaponized in current discussions again. Once that threshold is crossed, fallout can't be contained, it spreads like wildfire instantly. Insiders confirm this is exactly how the dominoes fell next. Parallel to cryptic warnings, confidential assertions began circulating through grapevine networks now. These whispers suggested the true crisis ran far deeper than a simple televised shouting match allegedly. Allegedly, there were strong indications of an illicit hookup, a secret rendezvous, and damaging speculation around a hidden recording surfacing. Now to be absolutely clear, none of these toxic claims have been verified officially by parties yet. The mere reality that these explosive discussions are taking place is what completely shifted the paradigm. The entire conversation pivoted away from scripted on-camera friction and focused entirely on what secretly transpired behind closed doors. That is the exact moment the timeline began escalating at breakneck speed. According to deep sources, this transcended typical entertainment drama. It was viewed as the ultimate personal betrayal. That shocking implication that an individual could aggressively project a pristine public image while allegedly engaging in contradictory behavior in the dark is what pushed this entire feud over the precipice. That is exactly when retaliation truly manifested fully. It initiated with highly calculated, passive-aggressive remarks and coded clapbacks, before rapidly evolving into loud, direct, and completely undeniable confrontations. This critical viewpoint, according to investigative reports, exposes a far deeper-rooted crisis because this is no longer a simple fight to protect public image anymore. This has turned into a desperate scramble to maintain absolute damage control over a volatile situation rapidly spiraling completely out now. Simultaneously, Michelle appears to be fully dug into her position, completely unmoved, refusing to retract a single statement or soften her aggressive posture, a defiant stance that only adds massive tension into the unfolding disaster now. And that is exactly where this entire conflict turns deeply emotional, because attention moves beyond sequence of events and focuses completely on psychological toll involved now unfolding. Informants say sheer exasperation has quickly evolved into a far more oppressive burden now. Immense pressure is manifesting as total exhaustion, and calculated restraint is slowly devolving into pure raw reaction. When an individual is blindsided by multiple chaotic narratives simultaneously, the deeply personal, the highly public, and the intensely emotional, breaking them becomes an impossible task. That is exactly when the audience starts analyzing every single gesture with a hypercritical eye. This exact shift is what sharp viewers are actively noticing across social media, not just surface-level theatrics but the visible breakdown from a composed exterior into a highly reactive, overwhelmed state right now. This is where the entire online discourse completely pivots because fans are no longer just investigating the root causes of the feud. They are openly questioning how deeply this psychological warfare is fracturing her peace of mind and whether she is holding a grip on the narrative or if everything has completely shattered beyond the point of no return. Consequently, the collateral damage is now becoming impossible to downplay. At this advanced stage, the crisis is no longer confined to initial statements or unverified rumors that have surfaced recently. It centers entirely on public perception and the terrifying speed at which collective sentiment is turning against Porsha Williams now. According to industry insiders, the fallout is beginning to jeopardize far more than just her immediate schedule. It is actively corroding her brand equity, her industry reputation, and how every future career move will be hyper-analyzed from this day forward. Once a toxic narrative of this magnitude gains momentum, it never just evaporates. It lingers indefinitely, permanently changing the trajectory of everything in its wake. That final breaking point, insiders say, reveals a far deeper systemic crisis unfolding now. When an individual realizes they are completely misunderstood or worse, denied even basic benefit of doubt, it forces defensive wall immediately, instantly now. In high-stakes public feuds, that emotional distance quickly hardens into permanent division. The audience is no longer passively observing the timeline develop, they are actively drawing battle lines. Dedicated loyalists, harsh detractors, and casual onlookers are all cementing their verdicts in real time. This is precisely where the most devastating brand destruction occurs, not necessarily fueled by verified evidence but driven entirely by how those unverified claims are interpreted by the masses. Throughout this entire chaotic storm, absolute clarity remains completely non-existent. Until definitive receipts are produced, every blind assumption and every frantic public reaction only drives the wedge deeper into the controversy. Right now it is undeniably clear that this explosive situation is nowhere near a resolution. If anything, it is carving out a permanent scar on their public legacies that will prove incredibly difficult to erase. The reality is the public is still operating without the definitive blueprint of this scandal. If even a fraction of these viral allegations carries genuine weight, then this feud is far from its conclusion. It is only pulling everyone further into the abyss.